So welcome back to this little series with some tips and tricks for MxBikes, and in this video I will be going over some more advanced cornering tips, and I feel like these tips will be helpful for all skill levels, like from intermediate to pro and like everything in between. I will start by going over some more general tips for corners and then move on to some more specific tips for different kinds of corners. If you haven't watched my last cornering video, I suggest you go watch that first, since I will be building on some things I talked about in that video, and that video will go with kind of the basics of how to corner. So the most important part of the corner is the entry. This is because this will set you up to execute the rest of the corner good. So if you don't have a good entry, you're not going to have a good exit out of the corner. When entering a corner, it is important that your bike is settled and connected to the ground. If it's just flat before the corner, this is not too difficult. However, on harder, rougher tracks, there are almost always going to be braking bumps going into the corner. So the way we want to hit braking bumps is that we want to be standing up first of all, we want to be leaning backwards, and we want to keep our momentum going over the bumps. So we don't want to be braking in the bumps. Instead, what we want to do is we want to adjust the speed before the bumps and then have a little bit of throttle going over the bumps. By having a little bit of throttle, we allow the suspension to work better, and it will be a lot easier to control the bike over the bumps. If the bumps are on the bigger side, you may also be able to use the first bump as a takeoff and cannot jump over the other braking bumps. The way we do this is by entering with a little bit of speed, and as you are about to hit the first bump that you want to jump off of, you want to apply a little bit of throttle. You split the throttle when your front tire is about to hit the bump, and you kind of bounce up and over all of the other bumps. This is a more advanced technique, so it might be a little bit difficult if you're not comfortable with the game. So if you are a beginner, intermediate, I don't think this is the first thing you should focus on. Line choice is also very important in corners, and is one of the things that really separate the amateurs and the pro riders. And I'm not talking about what rut we take in the corner, I mean more kind of how you enter the corner. So when we are going into a corner, we want to enter the corner at the very beginning and not in the middle. This sets you up to carry your speed into the corner and maintain it throughout the whole corner. Because if we enter in the middle, we now have to slow down, get into the corner, and then we have lost all our speed already. And then we have to accelerate back up the speed again, rather than having a speed going into the corner and then just maintaining that. So this will help you to both be faster in corners, but it will also help you be a lot more consistent. So just to showcase this, I'm going to play you two clips, and I want you to really pay attention to the entry of the corner and how it affects the rest of the corner. So as you can see, the second clip was faster, and the thing I really want you to pay attention to is where I enter the corner. You can see I enter at the very beginning of the corner in clip 2, opposed to entering a little late in the clip 1, which messes up my speed and the rest of the corner. If you are a more advanced rider, one thing that you can do is dragging your brakes into the corner. So the thing that we do when we are dragging the brakes in the corner is that we are actually on the brakes when we are entering the corner, and sometimes all the way into the middle of the corner, and then we just let off the brakes and start accelerating out. By braking in the corner, it can help the bike settled, and when you're braking, the weight of the bike is transferred to the front, which also make the bike and your front follow the corner a lot better, and you feel more confident turning. However, you should be careful with this because it is easy to mess up, and if you're braking too hard in this game, most of the times your bike is just going straight and you can't turn. So you don't want to be hard on your brakes, you just want a little bit just to make the front end a little bit heavier. And this is not going to work for every corner, depending on how the beginning of the corner is or if there are a lot of braking bumps before the corner. So once we are in the corner, we want to be standing up and have momentum. This will make it easier to control the bike and help it to get settled into the corner itself. Once you get into the middle of the corner, we want to smoothly apply the throttle at the same time as we sit down and lean forward. The reason we want to sit down and lean forward is to put the weight on the front tire. This will increase the traction on the front tire as well as loading the suspension in the front. This will make the bike a little bit lower in the front, allowing us to turn sharper as well as making the front tire track through the corner a lot better. We want to mainly lean the rider forwards, but we can lean the rider a little bit to the side as well if we want to. How much we want to lean and to what side we want to lean depends on the corner, but what I usually go by is that leaning the rider in the opposite side that you are turning gives you more stability, and leaning the rider in the same direction as you're turning helps you turn a little bit sharper. So I would generally lean the rider in the same direction for wide open turns that hold me really well, so I really want to lay the bike down to the side and just rail the corner, and lean the rider in the opposite direction for corners where I want more stability. Once we have sat down and started to accelerate, we want to follow the corner all the way out. And once the corner starts to straighten up, we want to stand up and lean back. This is to put traction on the rear tire as well as being ready to tackle any bumps going out of the corner. The way we want to get a fast exit is by executing the rest of the corner good. Because if you lose the speed in the middle of the corner, we have to accelerate up to speed at the exit rather than already having a lot of speed going out of the corner. Okay, so let's just kind of summarize and go through a corner like in real time. So you can see I'm aiming for the line right here to enter at the very beginning of the corner. So you can see it coming into the corner. And as you can see down here, I'm dragging my brakes right now. And I'm currently only using my front brake because I'm using the brake input. And I don't have combined brakes on, so I only use my front brake at this moment. You can use your front and rear brake if you have combined brakes on, that's not a problem. So coming into the corner, enter a good line at the beginning of the corner, and I'm dragging my brakes until about the middle of the corner. And you can see here I'm starting to accelerate, but I'm very smooth on the throttle. And you have to be especially smooth on the throttle on the 450s, not to slide out. On the 250s you can be a little bit more aggressive since they don't have as much power. But you can see as I'm starting to accelerate, I'm also sitting down and leaning forward. And I'm staying very central on the bike, I'm not leaning a lot to the side. So mainly lean forward and accelerate. And you can see coming out of the corner, starting to accelerate all the way through here, and then at about this point where the corner starts to straighten out, I start to straighten my bike up and stand up, lean back and just full throttle out of the corner. So let's just go through this corner again, just fluently in slow motion once. You can see aiming for the beginning of the corner, good line, dragging the brakes, smoothly accelerate, straighten the bike up and accelerate out. So let's just look at a little bit wider turn, and as you can see I'm lining up to enter at the very beginning here, and in this particular corner the straight is kind of curved a little bit, so I naturally start to initiate the corner right here, but same thing goes here, enter at the beginning with a nice angle in. I'm braking a little bit here because there's no braking bumps in this corner. If there were braking bumps here I would have adjusted and brake it before them, but coming in here, braking a little bit just to adjust my speed. And in this particular corner you can see I'm not really braking that much, I'm just coasting right here. This is just to make sure that I'm settled into the corner, and I don't really have to brake because the corner is so wide that I don't have to slow down anymore. In some cases you can drag your brake in these kinds of corners also, but I didn't do that in this particular corner. So also see here, I'm sitting down, leaning forward, very straight on the bike here, just in the middle of the seat, and then I'm just slowly and smoothly applies the throttle here, and then I'm entering and straightening out, standing up and leaning back. Another thing to notice is that when I start braking here, I'm at around 70 kilometers an hour. Going into the corner about here, when I've been coasting, I'm at 50 right here, and this is when I start to accelerate. And you can see I'm just carrying the speed around the whole corner, so when I enter, I have accelerated up almost 10 kilometers an hour. If you were to have a bad entry, maybe you come in here, you will probably have to slow down even more than 50. So you probably be like 35, 40 something. And then you have to accelerate up. So I'm just about 10 kilometers an hour slower in the exit of the corner than I were at the entry of the corner. In flat corners, you don't have anything to lean your bike against, so you have to be extra careful not to turn too much. The way we hit most flat corners is by apexing them. This means that we enter wide and go to the very inside into the middle of the corner and then exit wide. The reason we do this is to open up the corner as much as possible to get a straighter line, which allows us to carry more speed through the corner. We also want to be sitting down the whole corner and have smooth, consistent throttle. It is very important that you are patient in flat corners, because if we turn too much or have too much throttle, we're going to slide out and crash. And we generally don't want to accelerate until the end of the corner, when the corner kind of starts to straighten out. So our goal is just to maintain a steady throttle until the exit, where we straighten up the bike and accelerate out of the corner. So in this way we don't slide out the rear end when we are accelerating, because we are going straight instead of turning. As in almost every corner, we also want to lean the rider forward, and I find it helpful to slightly counter lean, meaning leaning the rider in the opposite direction from what you are turning, just to help stabilize the bike. Then it's all about perfecting our line and finding the edge on how much we can turn and how much throttle we can have. If there's a flat corner that we can't apex, then we mainly want to try to just hug the inside. We will almost never go wide on the outside in a flat corner, since there are no speed benefits and we have to cover more distance, which just makes us very slow. Berms is generally what we refer to when we talk about corners in general, so the same thing as I said earlier applies. However, for longer, wider berms, I would recommend to stand through the whole corner to get more control, since you don't have to turn as sharp, as well as it's easier to tackle any potential bumps that we might find in the corner. Depending on how wide the corner is, you can sometimes lean back if you don't have to turn so sharp, just to get some extra traction to the rear. Otherwise, it's not too much more to think about. Just make sure to get a good entry and carry your momentum through the whole corner. So going into a rut, we want to be standing up to make it easier to control and get the bike settled into the rut properly. Once in the rut, we want to stand for as long as possible and have a little bit of throttle. This will help to stabilize the bike and make it a lot easier to control where you place the bike. We don't want to be riding at the bottom of the rut, because then it's easy to catch the inside of the corner with our front tire, and if that happens, you're most likely going to tuck the front and you will lay on the ground and cry like a baby. So make sure you ride higher on the rut, and having consistent throttle will help with this. Some turns have two apexes, and it's kind of like two corners that have been put together into one longer turn with two turning points. In these kinds of corners, we want to treat each turn as its own separate corner. So we hit the first corner like we normally hit any other corner, and then depending on how far apart they are, we want to stand back up again and hit the next corner like we normally hit corners. It is also important to think about not going too fast out of the first corner, since that will probably mess up your run into the second corner. But the main point here is to treat each apex as its own corner. So that's some more advanced tips on how to corner and how to think about different kinds of corners. If you feel like I missed something, just leave a comment or DM me or contact me somehow through Discord. And if you want some personal coaching, I am offering 1-hour sessions for $2. If you're interested, just join the Discord server in the description and open a ticket. If you have any questions, just leave a comment or you can contact me through Discord, which is the same link in the description.